The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance hadn't seen such chaos in over 300 cycles. The massive crystal dome, usually filled with quiet diplomatic discussions, now echoed with panicked voices of a dozen different species. High Counselor Reed, his pale blue skin almost white with stress, raised all four of his arms for silence. "Please, honored members, we must maintain order." His voice carried through the chamber's perfect acoustics, finally bringing some quiet to the scene. On the massive display behind him, emergency signals flashed from Research Station Omega-7, the Alliance's most advanced scientific facility. The station's status indicators, usually a calm green, now pulsed an angry red. "The situation grows worse by the hour," Reed continued, his large eyes blinking rapidly. "The biological contamination has spread to levels 3 through 12. Our containment teams—" He paused, antenna drooping. "Our teams have failed. The atmosphere itself has become toxic to our personnel." Council Member Bright, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, flashed in distress. "How many lost?" 47 dead, 108 in critical condition." Reed answered, his voice heavy. "The station's automated systems are failing. If we lose control of the environmental systems, we risk losing our most advanced research facility." From the lower seats, a small figure stood up. Junior Council Member First Light, barely in her 100th cycle and considered too young by many, raised her hand. Unlike her older colleagues, her silver scales still showed the brightness of youth. "Honored members," she started, her voice steady despite the nervous twitching of her tail. "We have tried everything within our normal protocols. Our best minds have failed. Our strongest warriors have failed. Perhaps," she hesitated, knowing her next words might end her political career, "perhaps it's time we seek help from the restricted species." The chamber erupted again. "Impossible," shouted one member. "Too dangerous," called another. First Light stood her ground as the chamber's perfect acoustics threw their protests back at her. "The humans," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The single word brought sudden silence. Even High Counselor Reed's antenna went still. "The Deathworlders," Reed asked quietly. "You suggest we bring those?" "Those," he struggled to find a diplomatic word. "Those survivors." First Light finished for him. "Think about it. They evolved on a world we classified as a death trap. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, deadly radiation from their sun, aggressive predators, and constant bacterial threats." She pulled up data on her console, projecting it beside the emergency signals. "Their planet's average atmosphere pressure is 3 times what we consider safe. Their oxygen levels would be lethal to us. They live with millions of bacterial species in their bodies. They drink water filled with minerals that would poison most of us." She looked around the chamber. "What's killing our people on that station?" "Pressure changes, atmospheric contamination, bacterial infection, all things humans deal with every day." The council chamber remained quiet as her words sank in. High Counselor Reed's antenna twitched thoughtfully. "They're primitive," someone finally objected. "They barely have space flight. They reached their moon using chemical rockets." First Light countered. "They survived and thrived on a world that would kill any of us in minutes. They may be technologically behind us, but in terms of surviving hostile environments, they're far ahead." Reed raised his hand again, this time for attention rather than order. "The restrictions on human contact were put in place to protect us from them," he said slowly. "But perhaps we were looking at it wrongly. Instead of fearing their strength, we could use it." First Light felt her scales tingle with hope. The station's conditions, little to us, might be merely uncomfortable to them. Where our teams need full environmental suits that slow them down and fail under stress, humans might need minimal protection. The chamber filled with murmurs, but this time they were thoughtful rather than panicked. Reed looked at the emergency signals, then at the data about Earth. "It would mean revealing ourselves to them," he said, "breaking centuries of policy." With respect, High Counselor, First Light replied, "If we don't try something drastic, we won't have centuries ahead of us to worry about policy. The station's research includes projects vital to half our member worlds." Reed was quiet for a long moment, all four hands clasped together. Finally, he nodded. "Prepare a contact team," he ordered. "Find us some humans who can handle this crisis, and pray to the stars we're not making a terrible mistake." First Light felt her scales shine with relief. As she sat down, she couldn't help but think that this crisis might just change the galaxy's future in ways no one expected. James Cooper was having a normal day until the blue light appeared in his salvage ship's cabin. He had just finished checking the seals on his suit, preparing to cut apart an abandoned mining vessel, when the light formed into a floating ball right in front of his face. What the hell? He reached out to touch it, but his hand passed right through. "James Cooper of Earth," a voice came from the light, speaking perfect English. "We have an employment opportunity for you." James laughed. 10 years of deep space salvage work, and this was new. "Sorry, not interested in sales calls." He turned back to his suit checks. "We offer payment in pure platinum. 100 kilograms. That made him stop. At current Earth prices, that was enough to buy a small country. "I'm listening." "Your experience in hostile environments and military background make you ideal for this mission. We also know about the rescue operation you performed in the Venus high atmosphere last year. Most impressive." James frowned. "That operation was classified. Who exactly are you?" "We represent the Galactic Council. Yes, aliens are real. No, this is not a joke. We need your help, and we're willing to pay well for it." 2 hours later, James found himself aboard a ship unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls seemed to be alive, shifting colors as he walked. He wasn't alone. 2 other humans were there. Maria Walker, a tall woman with burn scars on her hands from laboratory accidents, and Tom Richards, a stocky man who kept taking apart and reassembling a small drone. "So," Maria said, looking around the strange ship, "anyone else feeling like they're in a weird dream?" "More like a weird joke," Tom replied, not looking up from his drone. "But the tech is real. I've never seen anything like it." A door appeared in the wall, just appeared, like it had always been there. Through it walked a creature that made all 3 humans stare. It looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a silver tree, with 4 arms and eyes that changed color as it moved. "I am Guide," it said in that same perfect English they'd all heard before. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." "Didn't really give us much choice," James noted. "Pretty hard to say no when a magic blue light teleports you off your ship." Guide's eyes shifted to a color they couldn't quite name. "We apologize for the abrupt recruitment. Time is critical." Its upper arms moved, and a hologram appeared in the room's center. "This is Research Station Omega 7. 3 days ago, it suffered a catastrophic systems failure. The station's atmosphere has become toxic, killing 47 of our people." The humans watched as the hologram showed the massive station, easily larger than Earth's largest cities. "Toxic how?" Maria asked, her scientist's curiosity showing. "The atmosphere now contains approximately 21% oxygen, high levels of nitrogen, and various bacterial contaminations. The pressure has also increased to nearly 1 Earth atmosphere." The 3 humans looked at each other. Tom started laughing. "Let me get this straight," James said, fighting back his own grin. "Your emergency, your deadly crisis, is Earth normal conditions." Guide's eyes turned a deep blue. "For us, yes. Our bodies cannot handle such hostile environments. We need your help because you evolved on a death world. What kills us is normal for you." "A death world?" Maria asked, fascinated. "Earth. Your planet is classified as extremely hazardous. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, deadly radiation levels, aggressive life forms." Guide's arms moved in what might have been a shrug. No other known sentient species could survive there unprotected. Tom finally put down his drone. So you need us because we're tough. We need you because you're survivors, Guide corrected. The station contains vital research. We cannot lose it. Will you help? James looked at the others. Maria nodded eagerly, probably already thinking about the alien biology she could study. Tom grinned, his eyes on the advanced technology around them. One question, James said. Why just the three of us? Guide's eyes shifted to that unnameable color again. Because if we are wrong about humans, if you are as dangerous as some fear, we wanted to limit our exposure. You are our test case. No pressure then, James muttered. He straightened up. All right, show us what we're dealing with. Time to prove that coming from a death world isn't such a bad thing after all. The docking bay of Station Omega-7 looked like a scene from a horror movie. Emergency lights flashed red across empty corridors, and warning signs in alien writing glowed on every wall. A group of alien officials waited for them, all sealed inside what looked like walking glass bubbles. Those are their environmental suits, Tom whispered, checking the simple oxygen mask he'd been given. Bit dramatic, isn't it? Remember, Maria said, what's normal for us is deadly for them. James stepped forward, taking point as their small group walked toward the aliens. He'd been in enough tense situations to recognize fear when he saw it. These aliens were terrified of the station's condition, and of them. The tallest alien, its bubble suit more decorated than the others, stepped forward. Unlike Guide's insect-like form, this one looked almost plant-like, with bark-textured skin and leaf-like appendages. I am Station Director Palm, it said through some kind of speaker. Welcome to what remains of our research facility. Its leaves trembled slightly. Though I must admit, seeing you walk so casually in these deadly conditions is disturbing. James checked his wrist monitor. The air's actually cleaner than Earth's. Fewer pollutants. The aliens' leaves all rustled at once, perhaps their version of gasping. You mean? One of them started, your world's air is worse than this. Oh yeah, Tom said cheerfully, pulling out one of his drones. Wait till you hear about our oceans. They're full of salt. The aliens moved back slightly at the word salt. Guide, who had come with them, quickly changed the subject. Perhaps we should proceed to the crisis center. As they walked through the station, James noticed how the aliens kept their distance. The few station workers they passed pressed themselves against walls to avoid coming near them. Some even turned and went the other way. They're really scared of us, Maria noted quietly. Fear response to apex predator species, Guide explained, walking beside them. Your eyes face forward like hunters. Your teeth show meat-eating capability. You move like. Guide paused, searching for words, like something that chases prey. They reached a large control room. Screens covered the walls, showing different sections of the station. Many areas were marked in red, with what seemed to be warning messages flashing. Here is our situation, Director Palm said, manipulating controls through his bubble suit. The contamination began in Research Lab 4, here. A section of the station flashed on the main screen. It spread through the ventilation system before we could contain it. Now over 60% of the station is. He paused, leaves drooping, is like this chamber. Like what? Tom asked, looking around the perfectly normal-looking room. Toxic, Palm said. The pressure is nearly 1 Earth atmosphere. Oxygen levels are lethal. And the bacteria. He shuddered inside his suit. We've never seen such aggressive microorganisms. Maria pulled out her tablet, checking readings. Director, these bacteria. They look like common Earth types. Mostly soil bacteria, some airborne strains. Nothing particularly dangerous. The aliens all turned to stare at her. You recognize these killers? One asked in shock. We live with them, Maria explained. They're in our soil, our air, our bodies. We have millions of bacteria living inside us right now. They help us digest food. The aliens moved even further away. Director Palm's leaves had gone completely still, maybe their version of pale with shock. You carry these organisms inside you. Willingly? Palm's voice shook. That's not even the crazy part, Tom said with a grin. Wait till they hear about our immune systems. James shot Tom a look. Maybe save the biology lessons for later. Right now, we need to focus on the station. Director, what exactly do you need us to do? Palm seemed to gather himself. We need to reach the central environmental controls. They're in the most contaminated section. None of our teams can survive the conditions long enough to make repairs. James nodded, already planning. Tom, how are your drones in this atmosphere? Working perfect. Better than Earth, actually. Less interference. Maria, you said you recognize these bacteria. Any risks to us? She shook her head. Nothing we haven't handled before. Our immune systems deal with worse every day. All right then. James turned to Palm. We'll need station schematics, access codes, and anything you can tell us about what we might find in there. Time to show you why coming from a death world has its advantages. The aliens watched in a mixture of fear and hope as the three humans began their planning. To them, these Deathworlders were walking into certain death. To the humans, it was just another Tuesday. Something isn't right here, Maria said, studying the readouts on her tablet as they walked through the empty corridors of Level 8. These bacteria didn't just appear from nowhere. James stopped at a junction, checking the station map they'd been given. The heavy footsteps of their magnetic boots echoed in the empty hallway. Even though they didn't need full protective suits like the aliens, Director Palm had insisted they wear basic safety gear. What do you mean? James asked, pointing right to indicate their next turn. These are Earth bacteria, Maria explained, stepping over a dropped piece of alien equipment. But they've been changed, modified. Look at this. She held up her tablet, showing microscope images. See these patterns. Someone engineered these bacteria, made them stronger. Tom whistled low, his drone buzzing ahead of them like a metal bee. So this wasn't an accident. No way, Maria shook her head. This was done on purpose. James frowned, his military training kicking in. Tom, get your drone to scan ahead for any movement. Maria, keep checking those samples. I want to know everything about these bacteria. They reached the main research lab where the problem had started. The door was sealed with bright warning symbols, but the humans' access codes made it slide open with a soft hiss. Well, Tom said, walking to a damaged control panel. Look at this. He ran his fingers over the edges of a broken section. This wasn't damaged in a panic. These are tool marks. Someone broke this on purpose. James moved to one of the lab's computer stations. Unlike the aliens, they could touch the equipment without special protection. Can you get anything from it? Tom plugged a small device into the station. Give me a minute. Alien tech is weird, but code is code. While Tom worked, Maria examined the lab's equipment. James, come look at this. She pointed to a series of culture tanks. These were used to grow the bacteria, but look at the settings. They're perfectly calibrated for Earth-like conditions. Someone in this station was growing Earth bacteria. James asked, how? The aliens can't even handle our basic germs. That's just it, Maria said, excitement in her voice despite the situation. These tanks are designed to handle what the aliens call extreme conditions, which means normal Earth conditions. This lab was built to study Earth life. Tom called from the computer. Got something. These files, they're research records, but they're not just about Earth bacteria. They're weapon designs. James and Maria moved to look at Tom's screen. The alien text was being translated in real time by their devices. They were weaponizing Earth bacteria, Maria said, her voice growing angry. Taking normal soil bacteria and modifying them to survive in alien environments. To be more aggressive. But why? James asked, though he was starting to put the pieces together. Tom scrolled through more files. Here's something. Project Deathworld. Looks like someone was really interested in Earth's deadly conditions. They were studying ways to. Oh, Dan. What? James and Maria asked together. They were studying ways to use Earth's natural conditions as weapons, Tom said grimly. Everything that makes Earth deadly to aliens. The bacteria, the atmosphere, the pressure. They wanted to turn it all into a weapon. A noise from the corridor made them all turn. James moved to the door, peering out carefully. Tom, get your drone out there. The small drone zipped into the corridor, its cameras feeding back to Tom's tablet. Nothing. Wait. He adjusted something. There's movement 2 junctions down, heading away fast. Someone's watching us, James said. And I bet they're not happy we're finding all this. We need to tell Director Palm, Maria said, downloading everything she could to her tablet. This wasn't an accident or a containment failure. Someone was developing biological weapons using Earth's natural life forms. And when something went wrong, they let it loose in the station, Tom added. Perfect way to test how it works. James checked his oxygen gauge. Still plenty left. All right, here's what we do. Tom, copy everything you can from their computers. Maria, grab any samples you think are important. I'll watch the door. He paused. This just turned from a repair mission into something much bigger. Yeah, Tom said, his fingers flying over his device. We're not just fixing their station anymore. We're looking for someone who turned our home's normal conditions into a weapon. And they're still on this station, James added, watching the empty corridor. Watching us. Maria looked at her tablet again, at the modified bacteria that had caused so much death. Using Earth life as a weapon. They have no idea what they're playing with. No, James agreed. But they're about to find out why you don't mess with the Deathworld's ecosystems, or its people. The emergency meeting room was silent after James finished explaining what they'd found. Director Palm's leaves had turned a pale gray color, and even Guide's normally shifting eyes had frozen in a deep purple shade. You're certain about this? Palm asked, his voice shaking inside his protective bubble. Maria stepped forward, displaying her findings on the main screen. The evidence is clear. Someone was using this station to develop biological weapons based on Earth's natural conditions. But who? Guide's eyes shifted to red. Who would dare? A new voice answered from the doorway. Those who understand the true threat of Deathworlds. Everyone turned. A tall alien stood there, its crystalline body glowing with angry red light. Behind it were 4 more aliens in modified environmental suits, holding what were clearly weapons. Chief Researcher Bright, Palm said, his leads trembling. What have you done? What was necessary? Bright pulsed with harsh light. You're all blind to the danger. These humans, the crystal aliens' light flickered with disgust. They're not just primitive. They're an infection waiting to spread. James slowly moved to put himself between the armed aliens and his teammates. That's why you did this. Because you're afraid of Earth. Afraid. Bright's crystalline body flashed. I'm terrified. A planet of predators who live with deadly bacteria inside them, who breathe poison and drink acid, who evolved in gravity that would crush most species. The aliens' light pulsed faster, and now the Council wants to welcome them into the galaxy. So you created weapons from Earth bacteria, Maria said, her voice hard. Killed innocent people to prove a point. To prove the truth. Bright's form sparkled with intensity. When our weapon spreads through the transport network, every station, every world will become as deadly as Earth. Then they'll understand. Then they'll see why Deathworlds must be contained. Tom, who had been quietly working on his tablet, caught James's eye and nodded slightly. You know what I don't understand. James took a step forward, making Bright's guards raise their weapons. For someone so scared of Earth life, you really don't know much about it. What? Bright's light dimmed in confusion. Earth life doesn't just kill. Maria picked up James's thread. It adapts. It changes. Everything you took from our world. It's already changing to survive here. As if on cue, The lights flickered. Tom smiled as his tablet blinked green. For instance, Tom said casually, "Did you know Earth bacteria can survive in electronics? They love the warmth. Been following the power lines through your station. Growing in your systems." Bright's light pulsed in alarm. "Impossible." "Nope. True fact," Tom grinned. "And about 10 seconds ago, they'd reached your weapon's power cells." The guard's weapons suddenly sparked and went dead. In the same moment, James moved. He'd spent years working in high gravity. The guards might as well have been moving in slow motion to him. 3 were disarmed before they could react. The 4th tried to run, but slipped on the smooth floor. Bright tried to retreat, but found Guide blocking the door. "You know what else you got wrong," James said, collecting the dead weapons. "Humans don't just survive on our death world. We protect it. And we really don't like people who try to turn our home's nature into weapons." Director Palm, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Guide, signal station security. The real security, not." He looked at the defeated guards, "Not these conspirators." "Already done." Guide's eyes had turned a satisfied green. "Though I must admit, watching our Deathworlder friends handle the situation was educational. We still need to stop the weapon from spreading," Maria said, looking at her readings. "They've already loaded samples onto transport ships." "No, they haven't," Tom said, still working on his tablet. "Because their containment systems need power. Power that's now being eaten by Earth bacteria. Very hungry Earth bacteria." He looked up with a grin. "Amazing what a few tweaks to the station's temperature controls can do." Bright's light had dimmed to almost nothing. You planned this." "Nah," James said. "We just did what Earth life does. We adapted, survived, overcame." He smiled. "You know, all those things that scared you so much." The station's real security forces arrived, using proper containment fields to take Bright and his conspirators into custody. "Perhaps," Palm said, his leaves returning to their normal color, "we have been looking at Earth's nature all wrong. What we saw as deadly might just be strength we need to understand." "That's the thing about death worlds," Maria said, watching the conspirators being led away. "Life finds a way, not just to survive, but to thrive." "And sometimes," James added, "what you think will kill you might just end up saving you instead." "The bacteria have reached all contaminated areas," Maria reported, watching the progress on the main control room screens. She stood comfortably in what the aliens still considered a death zone, though now with a new respect in their eyes. The past 12 hours had been busy. After Bright's capture, the humans had turned their deadly Earth knowledge into a solution. Tom's specially programmed maintenance drones buzzed through the station's corridors, spreading a modified version of Earth's natural soil bacteria. "How's it looking?" James asked, entering the control room with Guide. "Better than expected," Maria smiled. "These bacteria are eating the weaponized strains like they're at a buffet. Earth's natural life forms are basically saying nice try to the modified ones." Tom's voice came through the comm system. "Hey guys, you're going to want to see this. Maintenance Shaft 4. Level 7. When they reached Tom's location, they found him grinning at an open panel. Inside, the station's circuitry glowed with a faint blue light. "Is that bioluminescence?" Maria leaned in closer. "Yep," Tom said proudly. "Turns out some of our helpful little cleanup crew evolved. They're not just eating the bad bacteria. They're bonding with the station's systems, creating a natural warning system." Guide's eyes shifted through several colors. "They're helping the station. That's what Earth life does," Maria explained. "It doesn't just survive. It finds new ways to thrive. These bacteria adapted to help rather than harm." James touched the glowing panel. "How long before the station is safe for your people?" "Define safe," Tom chuckled. "Because right now, these little guys are actually making the air cleaner than it was before. They're breaking down toxins, balancing the atmosphere, basically doing what they do back on Earth." Guide's eyes settled on a thoughtful blue. So the very things we feared about your world are now saving our station. Ironic, isn't it? Maria said. Bright tried to use Earth's nature as a weapon, but its real power is in creating balance. The station's intercom crackled. Attention all personnel. Atmospheric contamination levels are now at 40% of crisis levels and falling. Medical reports all surviving victims showing improvement. James smiled. Looks like the cleanup crew is doing its job. I have a confession, Guide said suddenly, eyes shifting to a deep purple. When the Council chose to contact humans, many of us feared it was a mistake. We thought bringing Deathworlders here would only make things worse. And now, James asked, now I understand something. Your world isn't deadly because it wants to destroy. It's deadly because it's alive. Truly, powerfully alive. Tom closed the panel, his drone hovering beside him. You know what's funny? Back home, we're actually kind of boring. Regular people doing regular jobs. It took coming here to make us seem special. You're not special because you're dangerous. Guide's eyes sparkled with what they'd learned was amusement. You're special because you understand both survival and balance. Something Bright never grasped. Maria's tablet beeped. Final readings coming in. The weapon samples in the transport ships have been neutralized. Earth bacteria broke them down completely. Speaking of Bright, James said, what will happen to him and his people? The Council is reconsidering many things, Guide answered. Our fears of death worlds, our classification of Earth, and our policies on sharing knowledge. A pause. They're also very interested in your method of solving this crisis. Using Earth bacteria to clean up the station, Tom asked. Using life to fight death, Guide corrected. Using what we feared to save us. It's revolutionary. The intercom came alive again. Attention. Station atmosphere now stable at Class 3 levels. Medical bay reports all patients recovering. Emergency status lifted. James looked at his teammates. Guess our job here is done. Not quite, Guide said. The Council has a new proposal. They want to establish a permanent emergency response team, made up of Deathworlders. They want more humans to help with crisis situations, Maria asked, surprised. Yes, after all, Guide's eyes sparkled. Who better to handle deadly situations than those who call such conditions home? Tom laughed. So we went from being too dangerous to contact to being the galaxy's emergency workers. Life adapts, Maria said with a smile. Looks like the galaxy is adapting too. About that payment in platinum, James started to say. Oh yes, Guide's eyes shifted to what they now recognized as amusement. The Council decided to double it. Apparently, saving a station and preventing an interstellar war is worth a bonus. They all laughed, standing in their deadly Earth-like atmosphere, surrounded by their dangerous Earth bacteria, finally understanding that sometimes the most frightening things can become the greatest allies. 1 month later, the Grand Council chamber looked very different from the last time it had held an emergency meeting. Instead of panic, there was excitement. Instead of fear, there was hope. And in the center of it all stood 3 humans, still trying to get used to being called heroes. To think, High Counselor Reed said, his 4 arms moving gracefully as he spoke. Just 1 month ago, many in this chamber wanted to keep humans isolated forever. Now look at us. The chamber was filled with representatives from 50 different worlds, all watching through their protective bubbles as James, Maria, and Tom stood comfortably in what they considered deadly Earth conditions. The Omega-7 station, Reed continued, is not only safe but improved. The Earth bacteria have created a self-maintaining cleanup system. Our scientists are calling it a living shield against future contamination. First Light, the young council member who had first suggested contacting humans, was practically glowing with pride. Her silver scales shimmered as she spoke. And the medical applications, the modified Earth bacteria are helping treat diseases we thought incurable. Funny how that works, Maria said, stepping forward. What you fear the most sometimes turns out to be exactly what you need. Tom held up his tablet, showing the latest readings from Omega 7. The station's systems are running at 120% efficiency now. Those little bacteria we brought, they're not just cleaning, they're upgrading your tech, making it stronger, more adaptable. Which brings us to today's announcement. Reed said, his antenna twitching with excitement. The Council has voted. Earth is no longer classified as a death world. It is now designated as, he paused for effect, a life world. The chamber filled with the strange sounds of multiple species applauding in their own ways. Furthermore, Reed continued, we are establishing the Galactic Emergency Response Division, staffed by humans and supported by our technology. Because sometimes, when hope seems lost, you need people who call the impossible home. James looked at his teammates, remembering their first frightened arrival at the station. You know, a month ago, I was just a salvage worker trying to make a living. Now we're going to be saving the galaxy. Not saving, Guide corrected, approaching them. His eyes were a warm gold color they'd never seen before. Teaching. Showing us that strength comes in many forms. That what seems deadly to one might be life-giving to another. The first training center will be built on Earth, First Light announced. Under human guidance, other species will learn to understand and work with conditions we once feared. And Bright? Maria asked. What happened to him and his conspirators? They will spend many cycles studying Earth's ecosystems, Reed answered. Not as punishment, but as rehabilitation. To learn what you humans already know. That life finds balance, if you let it. Tom's drone, now enhanced with some alien tech, hovered beside him. So what's our first assignment as official galactic emergency workers? Guide's eyes sparkled. Actually, we have reports of a situation in the Andromeda arm. Something about gravity waves that would crush most species. But not us Deathworlders. James grinned. Life Worlders, First Light corrected. And yes, this is exactly why we need you. As the chamber began to clear, Maria looked at her tablet one last time. The readings from Earth bacteria still amazed her, how something so simple could change an entire civilization's view. You know what's really funny? She said to her teammates. All this started because they thought we were too dangerous to contact. Now they're building a whole emergency service around us. Life adapts, James quoted her earlier words. Guess the galaxy adapted too. Speaking of adapting, Tom said, wait until they see what happens when we start sharing our pizza recipes. Talk about cultural exchange. Guide's eyes shifted rapidly through colors they now recognized as laughter. Perhaps we should save that particular Earth survival technique for another cycle. As they walked out of the chamber, ready for their next mission, James thought about how much had changed. They went from being feared to being valued, from being isolated to being essential. Hey, Guide, he called out. Next time you find something deadly and impossible. Yes. Guide's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Call a life worlder, James grinned. We'll show you how we do things on Earth. Behind them, the chamber screens showed their next mission, their new ships, and a galaxy of possibilities. Because sometimes the most amazing discoveries come from the places you fear the most. And sometimes the strongest allies are the ones who learn to thrive in the face of impossible odds. After all, that's just what life worlders do.